Let me welcome Gopal X S Akshintala. Let me introduce quickly to Gopal to you. Gopal is currently a lead software engineer at Salesforce, working on scaling backend systems for Revenue Cloud. He is a passionate developer and loves being an influencer and mentor in the dev community through his blog post. He delivers international tech talks and then very active on the social media. In addition to his software engineering experience, he gains more experience per year by open source collaboration and contributions, active participation in dev discussions, and speaking at user groups and conferences. He loves to be on stage. Very recently, I saw his SoundCloud and YouTube, which has been there in his portal. Very interesting things which he has shared in the SoundCloud. He's a very active tech speaker and writes about nature and life. Welcome, Gopal, and it is our proud privilege to have you again here on the Git Camp, and over to you.
Hey, thanks, Vineet. Thanks, Ajay, as well for all that introduction. Even I'm curious to know the poll results before I start the talk. Can I have that?
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
how many people are aware of Git?
Yeah. So around, I'll just pull it.
If you can share the screen, Vijay.
Yes. So this is the result. We can see around 90% of them said yes, and only 10% said no.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. So I think I don't have to talk anything. Then I still want to talk about perForce and how perForce actually has been. Yeah, let me share my screen. So hope you can see my slide deck, right?
Yeah, we can see Gopal.
Yeah, so right. Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining for this talk, and thanks a lot for showing interest towards Git. And thank you, Salesforce, for having this. I'm really lucky to be a developer, to be using Git now going forward. And we all had our pain points with perForce. And today I'm going to touch upon how Git is going to actually help us in being more productive compared to perForce. So I'm Gopal Akshintala. Vineet already introduced me. So I work for Revenue Cloud. This is my Twitter handle and website. So today, as we all know, like we have mixed audience. Most of them know Git, but may not be experts at Git, or most of them are experts at Git. Most of them might be using it day to day. Most of them sort of lost touch. So when Vineet asked me to talk about it, I was like, what should I talk about? There is a training as well plan. So what is that that I can newly add on Git? Then I thought, like, as a Salesforce developer, as a core developer, maybe I can talk about my previous experience with Git, a decade-long experience, and what I experienced using perForce here, and why is Salesforce having this initiative to bring to replace perForce with Git today. So when I think about perForce, my biggest pain point or my team's pain point I see are like managing large features gets difficult, and working on multiple features in parallel is much more difficult, and it has a sloppy GUI and many more, which we're going to talk in this in our half an hour long talk. But I'm going to stress on my philosophy on Git, what Git offers. I'm not going to get into commands or hands-on experience because you already have training and a lot of courses also available online. So as I'm mostly representing a core developer. So when you talk about perForce versus Git, they're not just two different tools to compare. So it's an entire mind shift when you think about the entire ecosystem shift when you move from perForce to Git. I'm also not going to talk about the migration part, how you migrate from perForce to Git, because that also can be found, and I think we'll have trainings on that as well with proper instructions. So when I think about perForce and Git, I think about its proprietary versus open source, and simple versus flexible, and centralized versus decentralized. Now that sort of hits me when I talk about centralized and decentralized. That sort of is a big brain shift or mind shift, the way we think about contributing to the repositories. So when I think about centralized, whatever we are following with perForce is centralized repository modeling, wherein the entire code is sitting in a perForce server owned and managed by the whatever perForce server we have. And then we as developers always have to interact with it. Of course, we can do some minor offline operations with the help of, I think, IntelliJ perForce plugin, etc. But most of the times, or all the time, you are supposed to be connected to the server to do any operation. And on a day-to-day basis, you own the code. Of course, you have the copy of your code on your laptop. You can run away with the code on any day, but you can't have any version control data. So which is equally important as the code. And that is how centralized modeling has been. And now what is decentralized? So Git actually flipped it on its head. Now every developer has a copy of the entire code as well as the version control system. And it's like this Bitcoin thing wherein we all just agree to call one of it as origin. Doesn't mean it has anything special. Any developer, any copy of your repo can be replaced with an origin any day. So it's just that democratic system wherein you sort of just call something that is hosted on your GitHub server as your origin. It can either be in your manager's laptop, it doesn't matter. So in the end, we sort of are simulating or emulating that centralized system with decentralized by sort of voting up and calling one of it as origin. But why is that? Like you're again trying to simulate the same centralized system. So this majorly happens in open source communities outside. For example, today we all sort of call one of it as origin, but maybe some of the development community don't agree with the direction they're taking, or maybe it's not being maintained properly. I think you need to mute yourself.
Done.
Yeah, sorry. So some of the community might not be happy with the direction that the repo is taking, or it's not being maintained. What happens is a sect of developer folk from there, and then start calling something else as their origin, and then they keep building on top of it. So that's how on any day you can fork away from your origin and build, and you don't lose anything. That's the power of democracy or decentralized systems that Git offers, and which is predominant in, of course, open source communities, which we're going to talk about as well. So you can as well take entire Salesforce code and start a new Salesforce as well, but I don't think that's a good idea. The major point, the workflow is the difference that we will find between perForce and Git as we work on day to day. So what is a workflow? Workflow, maybe if I start with what perForce offers, you will understand. It's a very simple workflow. It's like you set up your main, you code it, you shelve it, and of course, raise a review, you unshelve it, you submit your shelf, and of course, break the build. Of course, that last step is optional, occasional, because we all check in into one main branch. This often happens that we keep on stomping on each other's feet. So this is a simple workflow, but simple can also mean inflexible, right? It might not suit every team or every other product release cycle or the product life cycle, wherein they might have a different need to release or add features or collaborate. So this is like, you can't have one fit for all. And this is why simple might not always work. But what Git offers, Git nailed it. It offers flexibility, and that's the best part of it. You can have multiple workflows. These are all hyperlinks. You can go and read about these workflows. And if you're not satisfied, you can even tailor make your own workflow. So you can pick and choose what suits your product as well as your team, the collaboration model. And that's the part what Git is popular for. So we're going to talk about maybe one of the workflows, the feature branch workflow. Like I said, there are many other workflows. This is one of the popular workflows. Even we follow it for our billing package, etc. So when you think about Git repo, it is all made up of branches and commits. So branches diverge, converge, as you can see. And so what is it? So for example, if you are owner of a repository and you want somebody to work on it, so obviously the person has to diverge from what is there and build on top of it and then converge back. So that happens at two levels. So if there is a main repository maybe on a server, and then you got to clone it, and that's where you diverge from it. Or some repositories, they don't let you provide any way to push your branches. So for example, open source, where you don't have any connection with that particular repository, then you might have to fork and clone it. Fork is nothing but a server-side clone. I'm not going to get into details of what these are, but you'll all be able to connect the dots once you understand what is cloning, what is forking, etc. And once you have your local repository, the main branch in your local repository, the one you see in blue color, is your source of truth now. Now you are like detached in a way that the main branch of your local is connected to your remote origin branch, but you sort of are working in your own laptop. You no more are connected directly to the central repository, unlike perForce, wherein we keep on interacting with the central repository all the time. So now that gives you a benefit of forking out another branch. Let us say you're working on some feature, you start a development branch or a feature branch, and then you keep on submitting to it. So now some things to note in such feature is you need to keep your dev and main branches holy. So for example, certain teams have different sort of model wherein they will have two main branches. One they call it dev, wherein it's an in progress branch wherein they keep on checking into, and then they use main branch for releasing their product. And of course, because they are important branches that everybody work on, you need to keep them holy, and not everybody can directly work on that. So that's why you start forking your own branch where you diverge at two levels, and then you sort of keep on syncing with your origin main branch to get all your new updates from your origin. And then you also need to frequently merge and replace your feature branch onto your local branch. If it doesn't make sense right away, people who might know Git a bit might understand this, but you might have to also understand what are branches, how you make branches and all. But what I'm trying to highlight here is you can independently work, and you could see that now because of this diverging and converging path, the chaos is maintained well, and you can any number of developers can come and collaborate on a particular repository or branch without a lot of confusion. Now there is no one single source of checking in or working on it. You keep on diverging so that you can independently work, and when you converge back, of course, you take care of all your merge conflicts, which is common even in perForce or Git. And once you're done with your branches, don't build an emotional connect with your branches. They are just throw away. So just remove your local and tracking branches. This is a simple, on a high level overview of feature branch workflow that most of the teams popularly use. But with this workflow, how does Git improve my productivity on a day-to-day? Now let's get back to the pain points that we had with perForce, and let's see how Git is going to help us. So large features, of course, in perForce, I keep hearing this term from my team. My PR has grown too large, and now my build is failing or my server isn't starting. I don't know whether it's because of my changes or something if I've broken. And maybe I should shelve all of them and then try again. I shelve all of them, maybe take a full sync, and now I notice 50 outdated files. I don't know what to do. Should I just remove and start again? That is the mindset. Even I was into this a lot of times. And a lot of times when I raise a PR, sometimes like certain features, even if you have to see it end to end, you might have to touch a lot of files. And of course, that's a super pain for a code reviewer to see 50 files in a review. And of course, they're going to ask us, can you break it? Of course, why not? I would need 3 point or more for breaking the PR, how to incrementally check it in. So that is sort of when it comes to handling large features in perForce, you end up raising large PRs, which is pain for everybody in the team. But how does Git handle it? Git lets you break them into smaller commits. This is a big selling point for me when I have to pick between perForce and Git. And that sort of gives me a way to also see how my feature evolved. And as a developer, I feel more comfortable to look back to my code and then see how I sort of committed. And if something breaks, I can just get back to a commit where I know that things are working. And you don't have to really lose your zone, wherein you can keep coding as a developer. Even if you have 50 files in your working area, there is a feature called staging, which lets you be in the zone. Yet when you try to raise a PR, you can break your PR into commits and then raise it. That's sort of a super feature that mostly like people normally don't use much, but I recommend exploring that staging area part as well and see how that can help. You can pick each line of your code to actually get into how you can break into commits, not just the files. And this is the best part. You don't need TMP auth or VPN. You can do more offline compared to what you could do in perForce. For example, as I said, you have all the repository with all the version control in your laptop. What can't you not do apart from syncing? You can do everything. You can create new branches. You can keep on merging if you're like if your main branch is up to date. So you can have merge conflicts resolved and everything. And once, of course, you're connected to your VPN, you can check in things and you can sync things up and down. So next pain point is work on features in parallel. And this again is a super pain point for a lot of developers can connect to it in core. wherein I may be working on a test failure as well as some feature, and then I end up making same changes in both the files, and I don't know which file got mixed up. They just keep mixing up because in perForce, the only way to segregate things is a change list, and change list is not very efficient. It's just like a folder where I keep placing files and one change list to another. But then as I make changes in common files, that sort of messes it up. So I keep learning this lesson all the time, and now I decided not to try this again. I might use my Linux machine and Mac if I have to work on two different features. Of course, 2 machines for 2 features is such a costly thing for Salesforce. But what does Git provide? As we just discussed, Git gives you the power of branches. Branches are, think of them as parallel things that you're working on, and then you keep on switch. You can easily switch between branches with just a command away. And you can even use something called git stash, which is analogous to shell in perForce, which comes very handy while switching between branches. And there's a lot more that you can do on branches, which you will maybe learn in your training and or somewhere online. But branches is an awesome feature. It's a USB for Git. And the GUI, perForce GUI. That's an age-old GUI. I have been, I think, working on perForce from 2015, as far as I remember. I haven't really not noticed much has changed in this UI, and it still keeps reminding me of the Windows XP experience that I had in my college. And Swarm for code review is so limited. Again, it feels like so old and doesn't give you a lot of features to have comments. Like I even notice sometimes comments are not removed, even the code is updated, and you sort of see some outdated comments. And there are a lot of things that Swarm needs to improve today when compared to the modern code review tools. But GUI at Git is like integrated into every other popular IDE that you might know. And that's a killer feature. I use IntelliJ day to day, and the Git integration provided in IntelliJ is super good that I don't have to really need anything else. I might use command line at times and whatever makes me feel better, but GUIs for Git are super dominant compared to what perForce offers. And there isn't anything that you can't do with whatever current integrations that we have in IDEs. Of course, VS Code IDE is one thing to call out. And there are things like SourceTree and GitHub Desktop, which are standalone GUI applications, which lets you do even more advanced operations, which are more daunting to do it on command line, like merging, rebasing, squashing, etc. But then GUI makes it a breeze. And Git.soma, if you have used it before, or Git, it's similar to GitHub, of course. And any GitHub platform that is available today is eons ahead of Swarm when it comes to collaboration and code review, conversations, and discussions. Patching. Who doesn't love patching? Recently, I got a patching request to patch something which spawns across 12 different modules. I have checked it in 240, and I'm asked to check it in 238. I thought it's just a command away that I can, of course, I have a chain list, I have a shell, I just have to do it. But then I learned once I started doing it that it's a dark art. So I had to really go into Google, search, build a script on my own to really port these changes from 12 different modules to 238 branch. And in the end, I sort of messed up a file, and I had to really search what did I miss and manually do stuff. It took me 4 hours, which otherwise I could have just done it in an hour if I had manually ported things back. And what I learned is this is not so popular, if the patching part, wherein if you have a CL, and I might be ignorant as well, but what I'm trying to say is this is not superficial or something that I can find it with simple Google search. So patching on Git is just a command away. You can generate a diff file and you can simply patch it on any repository. And Git even offers cute features like cherry picking. I love this feature. Like I worked on Android, like I was working with Huawei, and we used to have multiple branches for multiple devices, multiple Android devices. And people who used to fix in one device has to patch it to the other device. And without cherry picking, I don't know how you could have achieved it. I love this feature. Even today, I keep using it. And there is no nothing that I'm not saying. Git is ruling, so there is no exaggeration in this. And today, Git is dominant version control system, as Ajay mentioned. There's so many version controls which went and gone, which came and gone, but then Git is ruling and here to stay for long. And one of the reasons is thriving community. As I mentioned, you can find anything in Google. There are a lot of people to help you, a lot of stuff available online that you can read about and learn, and a lot of courses, whatnot. And this is because this is a mature system. It's already like it's built around 2005. I think it came in December 2005, if I'm not wrong. And then it has been around for like 17, 18 years for now. So it has thrived. And the reason why it had stayed and it will stay for long is the democratic model it has. And that's why it's the go-to for any open source software today. And anybody with a simple GitHub account or whatever hosting platform account can contribute from anywhere across the world. And it's proven for mega projects. As I mentioned, Android was one. Even today, we know that, and Ubuntu, something Linux machines we all keep using. It started with that the founder of Linux, and then a Linux kernel, Ubuntu, and a lot of mega projects are being handled. And one of the reasons is because Git lets you, it goes hand in hand with the modern module architecture. It is very important when you're choosing a version control system that it should let you do something like a shallow clone, wherein you might not need all the modules, but only certain things that you as developer are interested in, and which is also a case for our core as a core developer. We have a mammoth monolith, and Git lets you do shallow clones, etc. I'm curious to see how core CLI people are going to handle this and help us in sort of reducing that indexing and a lot of other things that we currently have. And of course, if you really are interested in Git, we started this migration, but it might take some time, but you don't have to wait. You can incrementally move pieces off core. Like for example, in Revenue Cloud, we have Vader, which is a fully off-core validation framework, which is being maintained in git.soma. And Loki, which is a hybrid off-core companion. We have a core module as well as a companion in off-core. And the advantages we see are these two, Vader and Loki, they move faster than core because of the smaller size. Like core is like a big ship, and these are like speedboats. So because you can keep on adding stuff fast and check it in, collaboration is faster, and of course whatnot, whatever that we have discussed before. And of course, word of caution: with flexibility comes complexity, obviously. And this is something we keep seeing in in every domain, like Mac versus Linux. Mac is more simple and Linux is more flexible, but that sort of introduces complexity. Maven versus Gradle, if you're aware of Gradle, it gives you a lot of flexibility, but of course, because you have flexibility, developers do different things, and that sort of makes it complex as well. And it's important that when you're picking up a tool which is flexible, it's important that you know what you're doing. You need to be cognizant of, you need to learn it well. Otherwise, it's easy to shoot yourself in the feet, and then you sort of might go wrong. And then you end up like cursing the tool rather. Like the problem is not the tool. The tool is a flexible tool, and of course demands some learning and cognizance when you start picking it up. Similar to something like a jigsaw, if you start using it without knowing, you might hurt yourself. It's similar to that. And of course, but the good part is I really never had to master Git, and all in my decade experience, I mostly use like 10 commands on a day-to-day basis. My top 10 commands, even not even 10, like 5 commands day to day, other 5 occasionally. And merge versus rebase is the only thing that I had to really understand, read and understand what I was doing. Apart from that, unless you are a Git admin, I don't think you need a lot of commands or no. Just understand the ecosystem, the fundamentals, and you're good to go. And with this, I wish everybody have all the productivity that Git offers. And I would even love to learn from your experiences if you have anything to add. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Gopal. So now let's have the Q&A time. So if you have any questions to Gopal, please start unmuting yourself and then start asking the questions. If you're comfortable using the chat, please type it in the chat. We will read it to Gopal so that he will answer it for you. And in the meantime, we have just initiated one poll, which is all about trying to understand how you are working with Git and other things. And we'll be rolling out one more poll after this in very next time, so to understand how much these programs are helping you and the feedback for that. I can see Yeah, thanks, Ed.
Hi, this is Debashish here. I have a question, Gopal.
Yeah.
For code, it definitely has no question as Git is the best. What are we planning in case we have some binaries or libraries or maybe some heavy files? Do we want to use some kind of another repo for storing those binaries and syncing in parallel with Git, or?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. That's one of the selling points for perForce when, especially products like games use perForce extensively. But I also read, although have not used, there is something called Git for large files, Git LFS or something, if I'm not wrong. I'm not sure that whether we're gonna use in core or not, but Git do have solutions for large files. That I'm sure. So, but yeah, like I said, I'm also curious to see what how we're gonna migrate and what we're gonna use.
Okay. Can I go next, Vineet?
Sure, Vinay.
Hey, actually, I have a couple of questions, but before that, thanks, and I'm able to recollect the golden days of Git pull request and Git stash. Yeah. So first question is like Git like as a open source software. Are we building any layer on top of it, or are we just using as it is, which comes by default Linux implementation?
Even I don't have an answer, but I know this Git Gimlet that we currently have, which is a layer between Git and which connects Git and perForce. I'm also looking at the other things that we do, our culture, like building core CLI, like a wrapper around some commands to make it more easy for our developers. I wouldn't be surprised if we build a tool on top of Git. But like I said, I'm mostly like a developer. I'm not in that productivity team, so I don't have a lot of details.
Okay. And the question number 2 is, are we using GitHub for the code review tool, or are we introducing
We have
any?
Git.soma. I think we might continue
Yeah,
using
yeah,
that as
which is GitHub only, right?
Yeah, GitHub flavor of enterprise GitHub. Yeah.
Okay. And third question is like, so right now every developer is doing their own check-ins. Of course, it has a pain. Like for to check in, we need to wait for 1.5 hours and all, right? But if you switch back to the GitHub, right? So only certain people with a code approve or access will we have the merge access, and ultimately it increases the dependency of the certain people who has a code merge access, right? That is a part one. And while we submitting the code change today, it runs a full build and try to run some of the important test case and giving the some kind of failures, right? So are we carrying the same thing to the GitHub?
I think yes, we should be. Git has more advanced ways. So I even currently use SFCI. I think whatever Vader that I've shown you has a integration with SFCI, which also runs all my build and test cases and everything before merging anything, or if I have to release something. And I'm sure we should bring in all those guardrails even to GitHub. And the time, I think we still can't help with the time. Even at today, the Git repos that we have will take around an hour or so because they have to run all the checks before merging code. That said, yeah, of course, the collaboration part might be more productive compared to Swarm. And merge access, I'm not sure if I don't know how it will be managed. So yeah, I think they will find a way to not to have it on one person for sure.
Okay, one last question.
Vinay, most of these questions will be answered as part of the enablement session. So watch out for those invites.
Sure, Ajay. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Vinay. Thanks, Gopal.
Thanks, Vinay. I can see Vishwanath raising his hands. Vishwanath, you want to go?
Thanks, Vineet. So Gopal and Ajay, so the major pain points with perForce, apart from the branch feature that Git offers and all, right? So major pain points are with the build, the time, right? And also the pre-check-in process. So even if we move to Git, right, because the whole core being a monolith, still the major problem might remain the same, right? And even the pre-check-in also, probably initially Git might have less pre-check-in rules, but as in when we go full on it 100%, then again the same pre-check-in process would come, right? So any pointers on those areas?
I can talk as well if Ajay also has anything to contribute. I think pre-check-in, time, I don't believe it can be reduced because the our core itself is big monolith. But the process of pre-check-in today is also not so good. Initially, before the core CLI, we had to do something from perForce, and that itself is used to take some half an hour before it starts. And if it stops, sometimes I'm not sure whether it has started pre-check-in or not, and then I have to go cancel the build. And a lot of the process of the experience of pre-check-in, I can maybe assure that will improve. The time part, no, might not.
Yeah, thanks, Gopal. My point is like moving one tool over other should like at least take care of the major pain points. Yeah, Git branches would be good. Like if I have to work on my patches and then on the current main branch. But apart from that, even though we move from a centralized versus decentralized and all, unless the binaries, there is some optimization on the binaries sync and all, but the major pain points might remain the same. Probably that's where I was asking.
Yeah, major pain points time-wise, like I think there is some scope that we can check on, like only running test cases pertaining to the changes. Even today in perForce, we have something similar to that. But yeah, I think it's a long road. Not something somebody can track. It's because it's all because the large. Like I said, when I worked with Android, even we had the same problem. The code base itself is large, so it's nothing much that we could do. But yeah, I'm hoping to see there'll be a lot more improvements. And Git, of course, like I said, has more community, a lot of innovation compared to perForce, and it's open source. Because it being open source, there's so many tools, plugins available to speed up these things. So I hope that can improve, remove some of the pain points.
Thank you, Gopal. I can see quite a lot of questions coming in the chat and some are getting answered. So on the last question, Rahul, is there a roadmap document that I can follow to check progress of the Git move project? So Rahul, I would request you to join this Git Slack channel, which we have started. Quite a lot of information is coming up, and what I understand is the core team who is working on the Git adoption, they are also planning to have a curriculum which will be published very soon. So we will get access to that. We will share those details also in the Slack channel once we have that.
Okay, thank you, Vinay.
Yeah, somebody pointed out build time is not exactly source control problem. So that's.
Yeah, some other questions. How secure is perForce when compared to Git, given it decentralized? How do we ensure that Git is used in a secure way? Yeah, go ahead, Gopal. So if anyone from the crowd also really wanted to answer, please feel free to.
Yeah, maybe I'll wait if somebody has something to contribute.
Yeah, Gopal, go ahead if you have an answer or a thought.
Yeah. My answer or thought, like, see, code itself is not a product. Security, of course, yes, as we have seen, Git is being used across multiple mega projects, which are popular at the same time, being used across. So like Ubuntu Android is one good example, like everybody uses. But in my opinion, like code, if you have the copy of code, there's nothing much you could do. If you really have, because that itself is not product. For example, even if you have entire Salesforce code, we can't go and build another Salesforce because Salesforce is not just code. So security-wise, that's one point. And of course, we also have guardrails for checking things in. So not everybody can go and check in whatever they want. And we have to diverge and fork, clone, etc. There are so many other guardrails that keep on that you have, and somebody has to, of course, approve your PR to check something in. So malicious code going into it is not again an option, or is not a possibility. And of course, it will be managed with your SSO credentials. Somebody outside can't check it into core if it comes to this. So that way, that's how I see security. It's equally secure. Git is equally secure to perForce. And today, with this open source explosion, I don't see a point of securing your code unless you are really doing something proprietary.
Gopal, this is Rakesh. I just wanted to add one more thing. Like Salesforce uses two services from GitHub. One is github.com and one is git.soma, which is like GitHub Enterprise, that we host ourselves on AWS infra, our own infra. And this is not accessible for anyone outside of Salesforce. It's protected by TMP, VPN, SSL, right? So the security guidelines are whatever code that is not meant for customer will not go into github.com. It will go into git.soma. So I'm assuming or hoping there will be some, either we are going to reuse git.soma, which is only accessible to Salesforce, or we will have an instance similar to git.soma, probably, for core, dedicated for core. So that is very safe, I feel, because it's not accessible by anyone.
True, yeah. And the organization that we have on GitHub is something we use to manage our open source projects that we release from Salesforce. If you want to maybe open source some libraries that you have, they will be hosted in that github.com/Salesforce. And yeah, git.soma is totally internal. It's an enterprise thing. So yeah, that's completely secure. Without VPN and TMP auth, you can't access it.
Gitcore.soma will be kind of git.soma. I mean, Git core will be similar to git.soma, will be internally hosted in AWS.
Oh, okay.
That is what I'm confirming. So most of these questions, maybe we will be answering as part of our session. I'm from SCM Git team. So what are the Git instances we have? Why we will be having them? So those questions can be answered on those forthcoming sessions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Manu, for highlighting that. So as Manu mentioned, we have the demo days also coming in, where the Git advocates, what we call them, the SMEs from each of the clouds, will have talks. It will get started from June 21st. We have 4 talks lined up for that entire week. And then we will again have one more talk, which is there on the 30th. So you can interact with the SMEs, and then apart from that, you can have the collaboration keep on going on the Slack channel also. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Sure. Thank you so much, Gopal, for being with us today. Thank you, Ajay, for having the keynote and then helping us to understand why we are doing this camp. Thanks, Bobby, for kickstarting this whole event. Please join us in the Git Slack channel. We will keep continuing our discussions and questions there, and look forward for the Kahoot quiz, which will be rolled out at 1 p.m. today Indian time. This is a tournament, and then for coming days also you will get Kahoot to be played. And the next week is the training, as Bobby mentioned, and keep looking for all those activities in the Slack channel with the post. The recording will be shared in the APAC broadcast channel and the Git SIG group, and on the web portal which we have created for the Git camp. Thank you everyone once again for joining with us. Thank you and have a great week ahead.
Bye.
Thanks, Vijay.